Who taught you that?
No one.
What's up, Florida fans? Welcome into the latest Gators Online show. Zach Albaverdi and Nick Del Torre here. Hope everybody's week is going well. Nick and I have been busy tracking all the transfer portal action that's been going on in Gainesville. Obviously, the Gators busy with baseball and NFL draft right around the corner, Nick. So no shortage of news. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing well. It was a tough Thursday night for the baseball team, but best thing about baseball, Zach, you get to play tomorrow. So Florida's back on the field tonight. Hopefully the bullpen figures out how to throw strikes, and I think we'll get right into football, though, won't we?
Yeah. Well, if only the baseball had me there with them on the road trip, then things might be a little bit different. But we'll save that for the end of the show. I don't want to brag too much. But before we get into things, definitely want to give a shout out to our new sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Prairie Dental Center. The doctor is a UF grad who's practiced in Gainesville for 3 decades and has developed a deep understanding of how to diagnose and treat various dental problems, along with advanced skills and knowledge to provide more effective and efficient care to his patients. If you're having dental concerns or just need a cleaning, Prairie Dental Center offers a wide range of personalized care options to meet your individual needs. Give their office a call at 352-373-3431. Tell them Gators Online sent you, and your new patient exam will be free. So make sure that you guys take advantage of that as we head into the off season. And if you got anything going on, definitely give them a call. And as we've been making a lot of calls, Nick, trying to track down everything that's going on with the transfer portal, where Florida's at on that front. And I think we have a lot of things that we can get into and kind of update on where things are at. But I think it's fair to say, based on how the first week has played out, that I think that the Gators are using this 2-week period as more of an evaluation process and really kind of just seeing who all hits the portal, evaluate film, start to build your board, start making contact with the guys that you really determine are someone that you want to target. But we're not going to see the Gators, I think, host any targets on campus until May. And that's just kind of the strategy that they've taken with this. Some other schools are hosting guys right now and jumping out in front. The Gators are taking a different approach, but I think we have an idea of where their needs are. But as we've discussed and reported at Gators Online, there's not a lot of scholarships available. So I think they do have to be a little bit picky about how they go about this process.
And, I mean, Florida's not going to even look like they've been tampering. So that might be part of it. They've also kind of tried to work behind the scenes to get guys in. You think about just the last cycle and getting Keontae Goodwin in. That, I mean, he came in at the buzzer. But we know where Florida needs guys. I think you need another edge rusher, a safety, based on how many offensive linemen were hurt during the spring, a backup offensive lineman. So the needs, and I think it's just looking at the portal and seeing what pieces could fit and if there's interest. But, yeah, Florida, I guess the outside perception would be that the Gators are slow or behind. But I don't know if that's the case, more so than just doing their due diligence.
And I also think, you got to take into account where this program is at in year 2 and also the scholarship situation, because right now they're at 78 scholarship players. They'll add four more signees this summer, so they'll be at 82, which is 3 under the limit. Now, if they have any incoming or outgoing transfers, that number will change. But just based on where they're at, there's not going to be a lot of movement. And it's a far cry from where they were during Billy Napier's first offseason, and especially after the 2022 season when they had over 20 guys that hit the transfer portal. We're not seeing that now. That's just not where this program is at. I think that's kind of what you would expect, but it is, I guess, a positive and encouraging sign that outside of David Connor, which we'll kind of get into his impact on the offensive line, but outside of him, who was transferred out and removed from the roster before camp was even over, he hit the transfer portal officially this week, but outside of him, nobody's left. And
I don't know that if anyone I don't know if Florida won't have anyone transfer out, but how many guys transferred out during that first period? It would tell me that the guys left or bought in. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect that same kind of exodus. But when you just go through spring camp, you start seeing where you are on the depth chart, you start seeing how reps are shaking out. It wouldn't surprise me if Florida would have a couple, potentially even a guy waiting for graduation and being a graduate transfer, because the SEC transfer rule is going to prevent you from hitting the portal now and staying in the conference.
Yeah, and I think that's important to note. We reported that at Gators Online this week because there was a report that the SEC presidents might consider changing the SEC transfer rule last month at the SEC men's basketball tournament. We were told that that vote did not take place. There is really no expectation that it's going to anytime soon because the majority of the presidents favor the current rule, which is that you can, as an SEC player, enter the transfer portal during that first window in January and go to another SEC school and play right away that next fall. However, if you miss that first window and you try to do it in the spring, you ain't going to an SEC school and playing right away. Now, you can still go and be on the team, be on scholarship, practice, the whole nine. You just can't play on Saturdays. And I think that we're already seeing somewhat of an impact with that in this second period, because it was reported from Hayes Fawcett this week at On 3 that the Gators had made contact with Bear Alexander, a former Georgia defensive lineman who hit the portal, and whether there was some sort of contact or some level of touching base, we kind of did some digging, Nick, and we're able to find he's not going to be someone that they really pursue like that because he can't play in 2023, and especially when you have not a lot of scholarships to offer out. I think more than likely you're not going to use a spot on a guy that can't benefit you right away.
Yeah, that's going to probably exclude any SEC transfers for the Gators, because you're looking for guys that, not even depth, you're looking for guys that can come in and play right away. So there's no point in getting a guy as good as they are from the SEC who won't be able to play until 24 or 25. So that's certainly a different dynamic. And I don't know that the SEC would want to change it, Zach.
Yeah.
You have like teams eating each other's rosters.
That, and I mean, the argument you could make as a case for changing it is, hey, if you open this up and make it like it is across the board with all the other conferences, you can maybe keep your talent in the SEC, keep them in conference instead of guys, leaving. But based on what we were told this week, I wouldn't expect that rule to change anytime soon. And not only that, the SEC commissioner, Greg Sankey, has come out and said that they are not going to really be lenient on waivers either. So this is they're trying to crack down, I guess, on that front. But I also think that might also have an impact on maybe why there's less traffic going on right now versus in after the season. The Gators didn't lose a lot of guys to the SEC, to other schools. I think it was just 3 guys, but there are probably many that hit the portal hoping that they can land at an SEC school. And if they know that they can't, maybe that keeps them from doing it in the spring. And then maybe guys just wait to the fall. I don't know. But I think what we're seeing here is that this portal period and this time around, Florida's roster is kind of going to be intact for the most part. We caught up with Billy Napier prior to one of his speaking engagements this week at Fort Myers, and he said, hey, you can't ever rule that out in this day and age. But as you alluded to, Nick, he feels like the culture is good right now. And, all the guys that maybe weren't all the way in or weren't completely bought in probably left after the season. And the guys that are here now are probably here to stay for the most part. So we'll see how it takes place. But, you mentioned that that situation with Goodwin, man, like he just got in during that spring enrollment, like well after drop ad. And it was like the day before Florida could get him in. And had it just been 2 days later, this guy wouldn't have been able to play in the fall. And that's kind of where the rules are at right now.
Yeah, that I hadn't even thought of it the way you just painted it. That might keep guys on the roster, Zach. I would wonder, if you graduate, can you go and play right away?
Not during the spring window. Not even and that was part of it, is that they won't even make a waiver for graduates. So they're trying to put their foot down, Nick.
Consider it planted.
Yes. Because when you saw Bear Alexander's list of schools that had contacted him, Florida was the only SEC school on that list.
Whoops.
Yeah. And like we said, that's not something that's going to have any legs to it. So, but there is something that has developed in the transfer portal, and that is along the offensive line. I was of the opinion, Nick, going into spring, after the first portal period, after signing day, just looking at their roster and who was coming in with Caden Jones as well. Once he was set to join in the summer, they were going to have 17 scholarship linemen. 17. I mean, I was of the opinion at that number that they're probably not going to add any more during the spring portal period. Well, then Cam Waits had a torn Achilles, and then Micah Mazuka had the shoulder injury, and then Jalen Farmer basically went all of spring non-contact because of his arm injury. And I thought, well, now I'm not so sure that they won't add a lineman. I asked Darnell Stapleton during camp, and he was basically like, hey, we don't have the scholarship room for it. Like, even, it's not like if some guys get hurt, we can place them on IR and bring in somebody else to replace them, like in the NFL.
Right.
So there's not a spot open. Well, that's changed now. Since then, that has changed because David Connor has officially left the team and officially entered the portal. So you know that they have at least one spot, or would be willing to add one person to that room. And right now, at least one of those targets appears to be Josh Simmons, former San Diego State offensive lineman, started all 13 games last year for the Aztecs, was a former four-star recruit in the class of 2021. So he's a guy that is already scheduled to visit and is set to be on campus in May. But what is your – and I got asked about this for my mailbag this week, Nick. I mean, what is your take on where the offensive line stands short term, long term? Is there cause for concern, or because of all those guys that are injured that could be in contention for a starting job, do you just say, hey, when they come back, things will be better?
Yeah, I think with Mazuka, with Cam Waits, do you get them back? And for a guy as big as Cam Waits, an Achilles injury, I don't know what the timeline is for that and the recovery time. So I liked Florida's offensive line going into spring. I liked Mazuka. I love Austin Barber at left tackle. I think Richie Leonard is ready to break out. And then Keontae and blanking on his name from Alabama.
Oh, Damian George.
Either one of them at right tackle. I thought that was good, but you can see just how quickly injuries can change the course of a season on the offensive line. So for me, I thought Florida would be fine on the offensive line in the second window. Now, scholarship numbers be damned, Zach. You're going to need some depth along that line, because I don't know that you're going to have as good as Najee Harris and Rod Kearney might be. I don't know that you want to have to play true freshmen in meaningful minutes, meaningful games.
Yeah. And I think that's why how that has developed with the injury situation, coupled with Connor leaving, who I don't think he wasn't going to contribute this year, but that just opens the door for you to add a player if you feel like, hey, let's replace that scholarship with a guy that might even be better, and more able to contribute in 2023. So I just think that looking at their offensive line, to me, the guys that have missed time could really make a difference in the fall, and makes me think that in the short term, it's a bit of a concern and why they've decided to go out and try and address that position in the portal. But I think that long term, I don't think that this is going to be a season-long issue. And again, it's a big if, but if most or all of those guys are able to return and are back to full strength and can stay healthy, they should be difference makers. I mean, we know about Micah Mazuka. I think that's I think everybody had already had him penciled as a starter, but I mean, I wouldn't rule out Cam Waits competing for a starting job. Now, again, coming off that injury, we'll see where he's at. But he started the bowl game. We know, Nick, that the staffs are really high on him.
Right.
And, I mean, the dude's a physical freak specimen. And then Jalen Farmer, a guy that, Georgia was kind of beating on the door for late in his recruitment. The Gators kind of had to hang on to him. There was a lot of schools trying to flip him. And then as a true freshman last year for, I think about 4 weeks last year, he was the backup to Osiris Torrance. That's kind of where he had elevated himself on the depth chart. So there's some talent there. And I guess I say all that to say it wasn't as bad as it looked in the spring game, right? Like the position that wasn't a representation.
And you take Kingsley out of the mix too. That's your starting center. You might need a backup center.
Well, I will say Jake Slaughter, he did pretty well. I mean, Kearney had a rough night, but Slaughter, I mean, the only snap of his that hit the ground was dropped by Miller. So he did not have the snap issues that Kearney had. But for Kearney, it's not a surprise this position's new to him. So that was probably factored into the reason of giving Kingsley the night off. But as you said on our last episode, Nick, any talk of competition for Kingsley's job is cap.
I think you and I are on the same page. I'm not concerned about the offensive line if everyone comes back healthy.
Yeah. If Cam Waits isn't ready and Mizuka's shoulder lingers, then it's a different story. And then, well, you better get somebody from the portal.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like you said, you're going to be relying on some true freshmen who will be talented, yes, but that's not an ideal spot to be in.
No, you're going to start going through some growing pains. And for an offense that we think is going to have to run the football, you don't need an offensive line that's going through growing pains.
No. And I do think that, Austin Barber is certainly a piece that they can count on. Richie Leonard, he really stepped up, and I thought he did a great. I mean, he had some blocks in that spring game, man. So they just need to get healthy, and we'll continue to monitor where things are at on the transfer front as we look at the offensive line, look at some of the positions on defense. We'll see if a quarterback pops up, Nick, but I happen to think that it's not going to happen. I don't think that Billy and the staff are holding out hope for that at this point.
No, and we kind of already clarified what he said after the game in terms of that being in process. So you're not just going to take any quarterback just for a number. So unless there's somebody that you think can get in, learn the playbook, and start right away, I don't think Florida's in the market for a transfer portal quarterback. Now, someone could pop in that is unexpected, but I just don't see it happening.
I mean, we're already a week in, and nobody popped up yet.
Yep.
So the law firm,
Mertz
and Miller. You better be ready. And also, is there a nickname yet for Austin Armstrong's defense? Have they given his scheme or his system a name? We're about to find out, though. It was a good showing in the spring game, right? I know a lot of fans weren't happy about that 10-7 game, but good look for Austin.
That's the nature of spring. If it's a 55-52 game, what's happening with the defense? If it's 10-7, the offense stinks. But great showing for Austin Armstrong, who will be compensated nicely for his coaching services.
He will, as we found out this week, the contract details for the 3 new assistant coaches, although one of them was promoted, and then also the contract details for Corey Raymond, who received a promotion and raise and a new job title. But starting with Austin Armstrong, the new DC for the Gators, he signed a 3-year deal worth $3.6 million, and he'll be making 1.1 this year, and then that will increase $100,000 every single year. So his contract averages out to $1.2 million a year. I want to say that it was either around what Patrick Toney made, or I think maybe even a little bit more.
I think it's a little bit more. I think Tony.
He was right at a mill, I
I
want to
think
say.
Tony and Spencer were both at a mill.
So,
But
but
29 years old, first.
man, what an ascension!
Not bad.
I don't know what he was making at Alabama as their linebackers coach, which I'm sure was
Not this.
a great salary, but it was not this. He probably, I would say, he doubled his salary.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because
I'm not pocket watching. I'm just saying.
Yeah, when you get a salary like that, I think fans come for you quicker. Almost, I remember when Todd Grantham became the first $1 million coordinator at Florida, came for his head. I like Armstrong. I'm interested to see what the defense will look like. Everyone has said it kind of scheme wise is very similar to Patrick Toney's. They're from like the same coaching tree, but certainly going to be aggressive. I think we saw some blitzes.
He was dialing up blitzes and all in the spring game, man. I was like, okay.
It was not a scrimmage to him.
No, it was not a vanilla game plan.
They put the ball down and we're coming after it.
Yeah, he definitely, I think, had a good debut there as the play caller. So that is his contract with the Gators, and we also learned what Billy Gonzalez and Russ Callaway were making. Billy Gonzalez, a 2-year deal worth $1 million, and this is his third stint as the Florida's wide receivers coach, and then also a 2-year deal for Russ Callaway, and he'll be making $300,000 annually. And this is a guy who was promoted to a full-time assistant after serving as a defensive intern in 2022, Nick, and I'd be willing to wager that he did not make $300K last year.
No, don't think analysts or interns make that kind of money. But I've said before on this show, I don't know how much, from when we're out at practice act, like the tight ends do a couple passing drills, like a couple of catching drills, and then spend most of their time blocking, most of their time, with the offensive line. I'm going to be interested to see when recruits leave, are they naming Russ Callaway? What is his relationship going to be with recruits? How does he do on the trail? I think if you're going to be a tight ends coach like Tim Brewster back in his heyday, you need to be a guy that is getting kids to campus.
Yep. Well, and we know one guy that knows how to do that and has a great reputation as a recruiter is Corey Raymond, probably one of the most valuable assistants on Napier's staff. And it was first reported by Matt Zenitz in January that he had received a contract extension and also a job title promotion, going from just the cornerbacks coach to the secondary coach. Well, got some more details on that contract this week. He got a raise in his salary, which put him up to $755,000 annually, which was $30,000 more than he earned in his first year with the Gators. So a little bump for Corey in the cash department, and a nice job title that he's now earned, and a contract extension as well. So he made it seem like it was, hey, no big deal. When we talked to him about it, this is what coach wanted to do, and I was all for it. But you and I both know, Nick, it's pretty significant that they locked him up and got him a title that he's, certainly, I'm sure, happy with and appreciative of, but also, paying him and having him in a spot financially where he can stay at Florida for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I mean, how long did it take to get Corey Raymond to Gainesville? Every coaching search that we've gone through, Zach, get Corey Raymond. You finally did it. It would have been devastating to have Corey Raymond leave after a year. I think Billy Napier did the right thing. You give him the whole secondary, give him a little pay bump, keep him happy, keep him in Gainesville, and keep him recruiting for you too.
Absolutely. And, we already saw some impact recently of Corey on the recruiting trail, along with Austin Armstrong, as they landed another top 50 commit, Xavier, at the spring game, 4-star safety out of the state of Texas. And he once again continues to boost that 2024 class for the Gators, Nick. They are now up to 7 commits in that cycle. They have the nation's number 4 class, number 3 in the SEC, and an 86% blue chip rate. A lot of more out of state flavor, I think, in this class so far. But they've got off to a hot start, Nick, and they put out the updated on 300 rankings this week. All but one of those 7 commits for the Gators landed in that top 300. So, we got asked during our live chat this week on Gators Online, which if you haven't joined it, man, I encourage all folks to do that, even if you are subscribed and maybe don't jump on the message board much. Like all of our readers say that's one of the favorite things that we do, and we have a lot of fun on there every Wednesday night. But they asked us, hey, what are you guys feeling about this 2024 class? What's the ceiling on this? And you and I were both pretty high on it, Nick.
I mean, the job that Billy Napier, the coaching staff, sure. The job that DJ Lagway is doing, like he might already be on staff. I think also new 5-star DJ Lagway. I think the job that he's doing and the job that Florida did to get his commitment early in the cycle, this is how you build, top 5, top 3, top 2 classes. You have an established star, 5-star at quarterback, who then is going out and trying to get people around him. I think that's really what has been key for Florida early on. And the way things are going for them right now, I mean, I would be hard pressed to say that you don't finish with like a top 5 class. It would be at this point, and it's super early. We're talking
at this
April.
point, it'd be a disappointment,
right? It's April. It's super early, but at this point, the way things are trending and going, anything but a top 5 class would be disappointing.
It would be, and we all know, and we'll get into a little bit more DJ here in a second, but we all know that he set out on that goal to have the nation's number 1 class. And, we're still early in this cycle. There's plenty of targets out there for the Gators to make that happen. I think certainly some things will need to go right for that to actually come to fruition, for them to get the top class, to beat out Georgia, to beat out Alabama and Ohio State and everybody that's going to be up there. But I'll tell you this, even if they don't finish number 1, if they're in that conversation, if they're in this range that they are right now, like that's going to be a win, because, the last few years, and even when Dan kind of had things trending, and even when McElwain kind of had things trending, and even during Billy's most recent stretch where they were doing well, top 10 was kind of like, that was like the ceiling so far. It's like that in the top 10 range, maybe 7, 8 was like the best Mullen ever got. I think 9 maybe. That was like where McElwain was kind of at, and at the end of his tenure. And then, the Gators had a top 10 class before the whole Rashada thing. But when you start talking about top 3, and I'm not top 5, top 3. If you are keeping one of the Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio States out of that top 3 so that you can be in there, that's where you at least have to be. Like that to me is where they need to be shooting for. And right now, man, they are on pace to do it. And if you just go off of the average player rating, the Gators are looking really, really good right now in the 2024 class. They have the number 4 class in the country in terms of, where they score out with how many commits that they have. But their average player rating is 93 right now, 93 even. There's only one school that has a higher average player rating this early in the cycle, and that's Alabama at 94.39. The Gators have a better player rating than Georgia and Ohio State, both schools that are ranked ahead of them. So from that standpoint, from the early start, from some of these commits that they've landed here, things are trending in the right direction on the recruiting trail, and that is one thing that they have going for them right now, Nick. I mean, there's still question marks about this team and what the season's going to look like in 2023, but right now the future looks bright for that 2024 class.
Yeah, and I think a good recruiting class, or an elite recruiting class to an extent, can, let's say Florida goes 7-5, 6-6. A good recruiting class, I think, will soften that blow to say, okay, listen, the best players on the team are guys that have come in through the transfer portal or have been recruited by this staff. So you're building. It might be a slower build than some fans would like, but it would show that you're building and that the trajectory of the program is headed in the right direction. So recruiting hasn't been this fun to cover or watch in a while, Zach, but the way that Florida is reeling in commitments right now, and the guys that they're in it for, I think there's more fireworks to come.
There is. And one guy that has a lot to do with that is DJ Lagway. And you mentioned it earlier, Nick, but shout out to him for getting that 5th star attached to his rating, as he is now a 5-star in the On3 industry composite. If you kind of look at where he ranks nationally compared to some of the other networks, he's kind of right up there. The only recruiting service that has DJ ranked higher nationally than On3 is ESPN, which has him number 14 overall in the country, and he's a 5-star on ESPN. Mm-hmm. Right now, he's ranked 20th nationally by On3, but if today were National Signing Day, he would be a 5-star. And if
because the top 32,
top 32, that's how Shannon Terry kind of sets it up with the 5-star rating system in each class. They eventually grow and grow and grow, and at the end they extend it to 32. They don't just come out with 32 right at the beginning. But the reason, obviously, for the 32 being off the NFL draft and how many picks are in the first round. So right now, actually, they got in the On3 industry ranking, they got number 32 nationally, the safety that they just landed. But DJ in the industry composite, which takes all the rankings from all the different sites, this week with the updated On 300 that came out, he earned 5-star status in that. And it's been a while, Nick, since you could say that about a Florida quarterback commit. And as you're going out and trying to get guys on campus this summer and get guys on campus in the fall, like, what a piece to be able to attract players with in this 5-star quarterback who just tore it up at the Elite 11 regional this week as well.
Yeah, and you wouldn't even know he's from Texas, Zach. That as much as he is in Gainesville, you wouldn't know that. So it's a credit to him. But I also was telling fans when the new rankings came out, like, hey, don't freak out. He's top 20. At some point, the top 32 are going to be 5 stars. I think DJ Lagway, and I'm not trying to gas the fan base up. I think DJ Lagway is a franchise type quarterback, someone that you can build an entire program around. And you've seen that with a Tim Tebow or a Joe Burrow, the year he had at LSU. Terrible comparison. Jameis Winston, the success that Jimbo had with him. I think DJ Lagway is the kind of talent that you can build your program around and have that type of success.
Yeah, and we've mentioned it before, but being able to have him committed so early and be able to be part of this recruiting process and this cycle and come to so many of these events and be at Friday Night Lights and be at the cookouts, and when a top target decides, hey, I'm going to come and take an official visit to Florida, he just hops on a plane and come meets him there. Like, the Gators haven't had that. And maybe when they have had it, it wasn't a 5-star caliber quarterback that was doing that. That holds a lot more weight. So he is certainly the future without a doubt. And we're about to see, Nick, next week what the future is going to hold for Anthony Richardson, as we look at a future Florida signal caller and one that is moving on now to the NFL. And we're going to hold the show until Friday so we can see where he goes on Thursday in the first round and which team decides to make that call. And I think there's some varying opinions now. I think there was a lot of steam there for the last couple of weeks that he could be like, I thought from looking at the mock drafts there for a while, it was consistently like mostly top 5 across the board. Now I'm seeing a little bit more top 10, but then even just yesterday I saw somebody project him at number 1 to Carolina. So it's gonna be interesting to see where he falls.
Yeah, he's high risk, high reward. I will caution that the week of the draft, the week leading up to the draft, is when the most like smoke is being thrown around, when GMs and scouts are leaking stuff to people because they want it out there, because they want a guy to fall to them, or a team to trade for less. But I've seen Anthony, from, like you said, because of his risk reward, his high ceiling, anywhere from 1, and I think Todd McShay had him at 12 in his latest mock draft. To me, I think CJ Stroud is the quarterback that'll go first. I don't have another quarterback ahead of Anthony Richardson, in my opinion, in the NFL draft. So to me, I don't know why teams would be scared off. Maybe they don't want to start him right away. I'm not sure what would scare them off, but if Anthony Richardson's dropping down to 12, someone's getting a steal, I think.
Yeah, personally, I would be very surprised just how this process has gone for him and how well he tested and how well he's interviewed for him to get past the top 10. And for a while there, the way things were trending and some of the buzz that we were hearing, I thought he was almost a lock top 5. Now that there's some more, like I said, varying opinions out there, but I think regardless, I think he's proven that he made the right decision by coming out. That's for sure. I mean, regardless of whether he goes 3rd or 4th or 7th.
12th, you made the right decision.
Yeah.
That's life-changing money there. He definitely made the right decision. It'll be interesting to see. I think, and I've said on the show, Zach, that I think he would be better suited going to a team like Seattle, Minnesota, a team that has a quarterback under contract for a couple of years to kind of take a red shirt and to ease in. I don't know that that's what many NFL teams will do. And, pulling up this, like if the Panthers take him at 1, you're starting day 1. That's the plan. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the thing that we don't get to see is what you mentioned, is those interviews. And you and I have both talked to Anthony a bunch. He's a very smart, well-spoken young man. There's no doubt in my mind he's impressed in those interviews, and he's a smart football player too. So it'll be interesting to see. 1-1 would be a school record, and that'd be pretty cool. That would really shove it in the faces of everyone that was saying he's making a mistake leaving.
Now, I wrote something earlier this week, Nick, and I want to get your thoughts on it because some fans didn't really agree with how I painted a story that I wrote, which was basically that I think that Anthony Richardson's shadow looms large on Florida's quarterbacks, and not for what he accomplished with the Gators. And I get that, and I get some fans that push back on that, saying that he's not leaving a lot of expectations for them to measure up to because he went 6 and 7. Like, if this dude goes in the top 5 and is a star rookie in the NFL, that is something that they're going to get measured up against. And I don't think that it's going to necessarily put pressure on Graham Mertz or Jack Miller, like when they're sitting in their locker room about to go out there for a game on Saturday. I wonder how Anthony's doing in the NFL. But I just think that comparison is going to be there. And, fair or not, they're completely different quarterbacks. But what really made me just kind of feel that way was being on the field at the spring game. And just being in that stadium where there wasn't a lot of energy, there wasn't a lot of fans that were into the game. And then Anthony Richardson showed up, and all like the young fans and maybe some a little bit older, like just went crazy by this dude's presence on the sideline. And he made a lap around the stadium, was very gracious with his time. And he's signing autographs. He's taking pictures and selfies with kids. And they were, without question, more interested in meeting Anthony Richardson than watching Graham Mertz and Jack Miller in that Florida offense. And I just think that kind of underscored a little bit where this thing could be at and how tough it's going to be for the Gators to replace him in 2023. But
he has gravity. Like he is such a polarizing figure, whether he was playing well or poorly. Like, people just want to see him. And then if it's your first time seeing him, you realize how gigantic he is. But like, it's tough because, talking to one scout, they were like, first round quarterbacks don't lose to Vanderbilt. I'm like, that makes sense. So like, I think that's where the frustration from some fans comes from, is just what he did on the field.
I will say in the Vanderbilt game, he also threw for 400 yards though.
Well, you needed to, because you were behind. You know,
it is interesting because I do feel like there is a portion of the fan base that just it's almost hard for them to celebrate the guy. But then obviously we saw at the spring game, there's still fans that love this guy and like can't wait to get a photo or an autograph from him, you know, and they don't feel that way about their current Florida quarterbacks right now. So it's just, and then even in the game, like there were a couple times that, you know, Graham Mertz and Jack Miller like ran out of bounds and they were short of a first down. And I know it was touch football out there, but you just saw them scramble out and run out of bounds short of the first down. And you're like, yeah, Anthony's not doing that. Like the sticks would have been moved if he'd have been running the ball.
You're gonna have a different offense. You don't have that. You know, we used to call Reggie Nelson the eraser. Anthony Richardson was like a bad call eraser.
Yeah, busted play eraser.
Busted play gone. You're not gonna have that. I think a lot of the fans in Gainesville, though, Anthony Richardson would spend an hour after a game, win or lose, getting autographs, taking pictures. So I think the fans in Gainesville and the people that have had experiences with him in person, I think will be pulling for him because he's a great person. So, I think I agree. I agree with yours, with your take. I think he has gravity, and I think his shadow will loom large. Now, it won't into the fall, but I agree with you.
It's not going to loom large like how Danny Werfel's shadow loomed large on Doug Johnson when he took over in '97 because he just won the Heisman National Champion. Yeah. Not that kind of large. It's different.
It did for the spring game.
Yeah,
I don't think it will once we get to the fall, once we get to August and the season starts.
Unless they don't play well.
Well, yeah. that's Max Brown season. That will on to 3.
Or Austin Simmons season. There's no way he plays. Straight red shirt, guaranteed.
I'll never guarantee because that taping this and they can blow up in our face. But
they can. I'm gonna go ahead and guarantee. I'm gonna go ahead and guarantee it.
You're on the record.
I am on. Any other first round picks that we want to guarantee for the Gators?
I think the only one I would guarantee is AR. In my opinion, Osiris Torrance is the best offensive guard in the draft. But do you go? How high do you pick an offensive guard?
He would be the one. I think Dexter will be a day 2 pick.
Yeah.
I think Torrance could sneak in there though.
He could. I think
there may be some team that just falls in love with his personality, Nick.
Great personality.
Great guy.
And then some team down there, you know, when you look at the teams at the back end of the first round, those are playoff teams. They need a piece, 1 or 2 pieces to get back in the playoffs and compete for another Super Bowl. A starting right guard, if you're missing one offensive lineman, very attractive to you, you know, in the 20 to 31, 32 range.
Absolutely. And obviously Osiris Torrance was a big time get for the Gators out of the transfer portal. Well, Florida men's basketball coach Todd Golden and his staff, they've also gotten some big hits out of the transfer portal recently. And their most recent addition, Tyree Samuel, he committed to the Gators back on April 16th, was officially signed the next day. And he gives the Gators now 4 signees from the transfer portal. And I don't know if he likes the nickname, Nick, but I've given it to him. Have you seen it?
No, I'm waiting for it.
Portal God Todd.
Portal God Todd. Listen, he came in late, so you had to. But yeah, I'm looking to see the guys that are leaving the program. I'm looking to see where they're going, and not huge programs. So Portal God Todd back in his bag.
Well, and it just in the eliteness. I mean, the Gators right now, they have the number 6 transfer class. They have one of the nation's highest average player ratings, 91.50. They've signed 4 transfers. all of them are ranked in the top 150 of the On3 transfer portal rankings. There are only 3 teams in the country, 1, 2, 3, that have at least 4 commits in the top 150 of On3's rankings. The other 2 are both from the SEC, Arkansas and LSU. And to get Walter Clayton, the number 15 overall transfer in the country, and then the Marshall Center, who's ranked 36 nationally, and then EJ Jarvis and Samuel, they're ranked 132nd and 133rd respectively. But that's talent that's being injected into that program, and the way that he's been able to flip the roster so far, address some glaring needs there at some key positions, and also put them in the position now where they can, if they add some of these pieces here, down the stretch, they really have a chance to have a good team in 2023. So we knew, if you remember, Nick, we had a show probably a couple months back, and I said, Todd Gold and his staff, they are about to show their recruiting prowess in this portal period, because they're going to have to go out there and get busy. And by God, Portal God Todd has lived up to his name.
Do you know for a fact that he doesn't like the name, or you're just guessing?
I tried to ask around to see if some opinions on how he would feel about it. I don't think he will dislike it.
Okay. It's a compliment.
I mean, I called Napier Blue Chip Billy along with a lot of other fans, and he didn't have a problem with that. So
as he shouldn't.
It's better than some other nicknames.
Yeah. I mean, I've been called worse.
So, but that leaves us with wondering where Golden and his staff go next, and kind of got into that this week on the Florida Gators mailbag, and seeing who they could potentially still add from the transfer portal ranks. They've inked 4 signees so far. All 4 of those guys officially visited. But then they also hosted 3 more transfers so far on official visits. One of those guys, Tyler Perry, not like the actor, spelled with an O, and director, might I add. But Tyler Perry, he visited the Gators back on April 6th, and now just this week named them in his Final 4, along with Kansas State, Texas Tech, and Ole Miss. Nick, he is the number 20 overall transfer in the On3 ranking. So they've got the number 15 guy, they've got the number 36 guy, and now they're trying to get the number 20 guy. He's going to make his decision May 2nd. Right now, Nick, it's looking like a Florida-Kansas State battle, but he is, I think, taking a trip to Ole Miss currently as we speak. But I mean, what would right now it would be probably the most likely to pop next for Florida. There's still maybe some more transfers that could emerge for them in the portal. It doesn't close until May 11th for basketball, so there's still some time out there, some more guys that could enter. But Perry seems to be like the most likely guy that the Gators could add next. And if they do, Nick, they're adding probably another. Would be another projected starter, and he would be their 3rd top 40 transfer. I mean, that's some serious roster building, and we saw a lot of teams kind of flip their roster this past year and make Sweet 16 and kind of deep runs into the tournament through the portal. And I'm not saying that this is where the Gators are at, but they're adding pieces and getting in line to be one of those teams that can do that.
And I think Riley Kugel decided to come back.
Yeah,
plays a huge factor in these transfers deciding to go to Florida, thinking, okay, I can play with him. And then, now you've got those 2. So I think winners want to play with winners. And I think right now getting Kugel back was the biggest transfer portal, win or recruiting win you could have gotten at the time. But as you call him, Portal God Todd does not sleep when the portal is open.
What would you give Kevin O'Sullivan's nickname in the transfer portal? I'm putting you on the spot.
You are. They kind of just got into it. So like BT Raipo was really their first.
He needs a nickname.
I'll think about it. He's a great recruiter, just hasn't used the portal much.
Yep. Well, the Gators are back on the diamond this weekend, and trying to bounce back from another series in which they dropped the opener. And I came through last week and saved the series, Nick, against Georgia. There were some doubters on our Gators Online message board, haters, however you want to describe them, that didn't give me my. First of all, let's talk about the sacrifice that I made for everyone to decide I'm not going to cover baseball, to give that press box that bad juju, and said I'll just be a spectator. And then to go out, and this is sacrifice. I'm walking away from free food and all the stuff that Sully gives us. And then I show up as a fan for the first time last season, and they get a walk-off against FSU. And then I come back with my class, and they win again. And every time I show up as a spectator, they get the dub. And I still had some Gators Online subscribers who had the audacity to think that I was going to mess up the Georgia series. Well, they learned on Saturday.
The baseball crew is superstitious, and I think you covered for me the opening weekend last year and covered 2 losses. So it might not be your presence in the park, just in the press box.
I can't be elevated.
That's it. You got to be one with the people down on the burn.
Yes. And then just for good measure, I went back for the FAU game just to show Micah Gator that indeed I bring the good juju to the park. But they had it going. Obviously, that was a great, I guess you'd call it, don't call it a comeback, but they did come back against Georgia to take that series. Absolutely just went on a home run derby, it felt like, against Florida A&M. It was tough injury that we saw, though, with their catcher that took it in the kids' maker. And now they're on the road, Nick, trying to keep it going in SEC play, but facing a deficit right now.
Yeah, not a bad start from Brandon Sproat last night. Will Sanders, who was fantastic for South Carolina, they kind of matched wits back and forth. And it's just the bullpen. And I thought Florida's bullpen had kind of figured things out, and they had even picked up the starting pitchers after a couple of bad outings. But you take Brandon Sproat out. He's at 102 pitches, I think, 103. To bring in a lefty to face a lefty who's only hitting 176. Next thing you know, you've walked 5 in a row. And a 3-3 game in the next 2 innings turned into a 13-3 run rule. So it's not new. It would be nice to say it was new and it was just the first time that it happened. But we've seen this from the bullpen, and Philip Abner had been good, had been really good. It's tough when you don't have Brandon Neely because of a suspension, and Kevin O'Sullivan, when we ask him about it, he has no answers. He's like, we're not asking a lot. Sproat, Waldrip will go 6. We have Ryan Slater this weekend, who'll be the closer, who can throw 2 innings. We need 3 outs, maybe 4 or 5 outs. And time again, Florida's just not getting that from guys. So the good thing is Florida has responded every time they've lost this year. They have not lost back-to-back games this season. So you get Hurston Waldrip on the mound. He's coming off of back-to-back great outings. He has that disgusting splitter. And like I said earlier, the best thing about baseball is the opportunity to play again. So Florida tonight, SEC Network Plus at 7 p.m. And looking to get a better outing from the bullpen as a whole.
No doubt. And obviously, they're trying to keep it rolling in SEC play as well. Did you get a chance to catch what Kevin O'Sullivan had to say after the game, and just what do you feel like is his take on just some of these struggles that they've had in these openers?
Yeah, his take was, first and foremost, you got to flush it. You just got to get rid of it. Like, you can't let that loss linger in. It's one of those burn the tape games. Forget about it. But it was just more frustration from, you're not asking these pitchers to do a lot. You're asking them just to throw strikes. And for 2 different guys to come in and walk 5 consecutive batters, it's unacceptable at this level of baseball. Me playing Division III baseball might have been a common occurrence. But at this level, that's something you can't have. And Florida's had issues with walking people. Even the starters have at times. So I don't know what the difference is this year. Kevin O'Sullivan has always preached first pitch strike, 2 of the first 3 strikes. That's how his entire program has been built. So he's at a loss for words. He yesterday he did say, I hope some of these guys have hit rock bottom and will look at themselves in the mirror and say, I can't keep doing this.
Yeah. Well, they've done it lately. They've 3 of their last 4 series. They have dropped the first game, but as Nick said, they have been able to come back each time. So we'll see if they're able to do it on the road this weekend at South Carolina, the number 6 team in the country. What was any update on the catcher that took one on Tuesday? Is he all right?
Renee, I did not ask for an update since I wasn't there. But yeah, he probably is not in line to start or play this week with BT and Luke Heyman manning down the catching role. But listen,
second time this happened this season, man.
You're catching, you have to wear a cup. Just have to.
Yeah, I mean, my son knows that.
Everyone should know that.
Well, we'll see how it plays out in Columbia this weekend, and definitely been exciting so far to watch this baseball team in SEC play, and we're continuing to get into the thick of it, and we are also continuing to get into the thick of transfer portal action. It will close for the football team on April 30th, and it will close for the basketball team on May 11th. So make sure that you guys stay locked to Gators Online. We are staying on top of this stuff as much as we can. Bringing you a bunch of new features as well that our new recruiting writer, Keith Niebuhr, has brought over to the site. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure that you join us. A lot of cool content coming for this off season, and we will keep you guys updated on all things happening with the Gators. And we will see you next Friday to recap the first round of the NFL draft and see where AR had his name called. So for Nick Del Torre, I'm Zach Albaverdi. See you guys next week. What's up, Florida fans? Wanted to encourage all of you to go check out rogueshop.com. If you have issues sleeping, chronic pain, and or anxiety and stress, Rogue Shop sells CBD, THC, edibles, smokables, and vapes, as well as handcrafted bath salts, soaps, candles, massage oils, pain creams, and topicals. Rogue Shop is a true small business, disabled, veteran-owned, Black-owned, woman-owned company. They have 5 employees and make all of their products with their own cannabis grown in their manufacturing facility. Visit rogueshop.com. That's ROGUESHOP.com.